Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this double flap card. I don't know about you, but when I use designer series paper, more often than not, my two most favourite designs in the pack are on the same sheet of paper, just the opposite sides. And very rarely there comes to be a design that not the most fond of. Well, this lovely card, which I love this side, fortunately, the opposite side of it is one that was just really not my thing. So this was the piece. It's from the Unbounded Beauty designer series paper. And I don't know, I am struggling to use this to its full potential. However, the other side is pretty darn gorgeous. So what I did was I cut it down because I was making two cards and they're 5 1/4 actually tall. That meant 10 1/2. So I cut the piece I wasn't going to be using off where the orientation has the flowers standing up, because it's more likely I would get to use that. It just means that when we turn it over and use the card the way I want it to, the other side is, the orientation's wrong, but it doesn't matter because none of this side shows in the card. So that was just a tip, that if you're going to use a side and you're going to cut it down, cut the extra piece off first, because it might help the orientation of the 1.5 inch that is not going to be used in this current project. So we're left with a piece that's 12 by 5 1/4, and we score it at 2, 4, 6 and 8 and fold it on those fold lines. So let me just find them. They will fold back on themselves, so it doesn't really matter which way you actually crease them. And having just said it's not going to show on the other side, here it is. It depends, as always, which part of the scoring trough it lands in. So let me now struggle and rescore that, because that will be the edge piece. And then fold and fold until we get to the middle, and we're left with 5 1/4 by 4, which we know mats onto a piece really nicely. Again, sorry guys, let me just struggle with this, because I really don't want that underside peeking out. There we go, lovely. And then what we need is a mat, the usual size, which is it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this on, because that will give us the whole card, the size that fits so nicely into a standard envelope. And it's easier to do this piece without all the extra bits on it. So there we have it. There is the card. So what we need to do now is make sure these pieces aren't visible, and we're just going to stick them together. So I'm going to use some glue for this to make sure it stays closed. So we'll stick that one down to itself, and again with this one. And just if we use the glue, we know it's a little bit stronger and it will keep it together. Hold yourself together. So now we've got the two pieces that open for the card. And then what we need to do is make the elements. Actually, no, there's a piece for the inside, which is 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. So let me pop that into, and that's all I like, the boring standard pieces all done. Now it's a card. Now comes the fun part of the decorating. So I'm going to be using the wonderful new Happy Hibiscus. It comes with an embossing folder, which I'm not using this time, and it also comes with the dies. So there's a lot of, here's ones I made earlier, but let me just show you how we got to that piece. So there's a lovely piece, which is 3 flowers all together, and I'm going to bring in the peach pie and stamp it full strength onto another piece of cardstock. There we go. This is it's just a quarter sheet of cardstock, but I brought it in just for showing you how we make it with the full two-step. So the other part of the two-step, of course, is to stamp it off onto a scratch of paper to get the second generation. So we stamp that off onto a scratch of paper, and then we get the lighter refrain. So that will show you how we achieved that. And then what I did was I did that twice. I did it in the peach pie, and I was going to do it in the petunia pop, which matches the colours in the Unbounded Beauty. I just found it was a little bit powerful, so I got out my Melon Mambo and I did the same thing. So stamped the outside first generation, stamped off the second layer and popped that on the inside. And I did the same thing with some leaves. And I also made two little flowers. This is the Summer Splash, so I made the blue Summer Splash. There is a die for a leaf, and I just did that out of regular cardstock with no stamping. And then we have two circles. This is 2.5 and this is 2 1/4. I used my punches, but if you don't have the punches, I'm sure you can get circles that are similarly sized. One just needs to be a little bit shorter. Quite often nowadays there are dies. I think the Stylish Shapes or the circle dies. There's an awful lot of them where you can get different layered sized circles. I just happen to have the punches, so I used them. So again, if you have the punches, it's the 2.5 inch and then the 2 1/4. And what I did was I punched out a rectangle from the stitched rectangles. It's this one. I just sometimes feel if it's stitched and there's only words on the image, on the on the piece, it just gives a little bit of something extra. So I'm going to use Just a Note, which comes out of the Simply Said stamp set, and just pop that on there because it was just such a perfect size. So I love Simply Said. I mean, it lives up to its name. There's just some really nice, simple greetings. And Just a Note. You can say Just a Note for anything, can't you? Just a note to say hello, just a note to say happy birthday, just a note to say whatever it is I'm wanting to tell you. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to build, actually I'll bring in the original card. I'm going to build these circles, and you'll notice they are just opposites of each other. The flowers in descending order are just in a different order, just to shake it up a little bit. So I'm going to put the big Melon Mambo on, and then the medium size peach pie. And then on this one, I'm going to put on the big peach pie and the medium Melon Mambo. It's as complicated as that. But then the two front flowers are going to both be Summer Splash, the little baby one. And then what I did was the flowers that I cut out of the cardstock in the Summer Splash, I'm going to tuck behind. So I'm just going to bring in my silicone mat so I can put glue on the bottom of them. As you'll see, the die actually has a longer stalk, but I didn't need to try to get that down into here, so I just didn't die cut it that big. Sort of cut them down a little bit, so we can put two leaves in behind there, and two leaves in behind this one, and then we get a lovely feel for it. Now the stamped leaves I'm actually going to pop on the inside. Oh, it won't lift up. And then just one of the extra little flowers that I had left over from these sets. So I'll put two leaves just to decorate the inside. And now what we need to do is add all of our ingredients to the front of the card. So I'm going to use our lovely regular ZZ fold technique. So just make sure that these aren't higher than the edge of the card, otherwise they'll not fit in the envelope. And flip them over. Now they're not an exact square, so you have to just be careful that where you're putting your adhesive is going to safely not overrun the edge of the card, because you don't want it to be sticky here, and stick it down. And then what we're going to do is put this one on the next size down. So I'm just sort of eyeballing them down. We don't want to peek out the bottom. And then flip it over and put adhesive on the back of where it won't be seen. And match them up. And then we're just going to pop on the greeting on the front. And if you wanted to, you could continue the greetings. You could have it say more things here. You could say just a note to say hello because I love you, or something like that. And then our last little trip is to the basket of doodads, shiny blings. And we'll pop one there and a little summer splash one. And a nice little petunia pop. Even though I did use melon mambo, the colours blend nicely enough, I think. So there you have it. Two the same. Actually, look at that. That flower got rotated round a little bit, but it doesn't make it look any less. So double flap card with a nice little saying inside. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. If you've got a question or a comment, pop those in the description box below. The directions and dimensions will always be on my blog as always. And last but not least, thanks so much for watching.